Hello everyone and welcome back. First of all, I just want to say thank you. The feedback on my last video was honestly overwhelming. Some of you asked if I could make a video showing my learning routine, the tools I use and how I actually study Japanese, step by step. That's exactly what we're doing here. This video will cover the major parts of my learning system, things like Anki, sentence mining, immersion, and how I combine them into my daily routine. Now before we start, one important thing. You can learn Japanese without paying a single cent. Every paid app or course out there has a free alternative that works just as well, often even better. Also, and this is really important, just because something costs money doesn't mean it's good. Lastly, what I'm showing you today is how I personally learn Japanese right now. My focus is on understanding and speaking Japanese naturally. Writing, especially handwriting, is not something I recommend focusing on as a beginner. There are smarter ways to use your time early on. So, with all that said, let's jump into the first major topic. Let's first talk about how I started studying Japanese. And as I mentioned in the last video, I started like many people did years ago, with RTK, the Tango N5 deck, and a lot of anime. Back then, there was the standard beginner formula. You would get a copy of RTK, get a copy of the Tango N5 book, send the receipt of that N5 book to some back then respected Japanese immersion YouTuber to then receive the Tango N5 Anki deck. Go through RTK and Anki while watching anime. A shit ton. After you finished the RTK book and learned the first 1000 words in Anki, you should have watched some dozen hours of anime. The goal was to get used to the sound of Japanese, while slowly learning vocab and reaching something that was called kanji fluency. Technically, the goal of RTK is to paraphrase the introduction from the book to provide the student of Japanese with a simple method for correlating the writing and the meaning of Japanese characters in such a way as to make them both easy to remember. This doesn't mean that you are fluent in Japanese or in kanji. This just means that you create some mental connections between the picture of a kanji and the rough meaning, as well that you're able to differentiate between similar kanji like migi or ishi. But that was then. Today, I'd honestly recommend a different approach. Focus on tools that give you real progress, not fake dopamine. These apps are designed to make you feel good, not fluent. They give you the illusion of progress with cute graphics and streaks, but no real ability to read or understand Japanese. So let's talk about how I'd actually begin today. Phase 1 is all about building habits, setting up your tools and making Japanese a natural part of your life. Your goals are twofold. First, get very basic reading comprehension, and second, build the habit of daily immersion. That's it. You don't need to speak it, you don't need perfect grammar, you're just getting familiar with how the language looks and sounds. If you're brand new to Japanese, kana is your alphabet, or rather your two alphabets. Hiragana and katakana both represent the same sounds, but they're used in different situations. Here's the good news, learning kana is not hard. You don't need to be some genius or spend months drilling it. Honestly, you can learn them in a couple of days if you go hard, or 2 weeks if you take it easy. So now, don't stress about perfect recall. You don't need to know them so well that if you wake up at 3 AM and flash a character at you, you instantly know what it is. In the beginning, it's completely normal to forget some, to mix them up, or to need a quick lookup. That's fine. What matters is exposure and practice. Think of it like learning the controls in a video game. At first, you'll pause to check which button does what, but after a few days, it becomes muscle memory. So in phase 1, your first task is to learn hiragana and katakana. Once you can roughly read them, even slowly, you're ready for the next step. Important to know here is that when I talk about reading them, that there is no vocab involved. Vocab comes now in step 2. Because now it's time to start collecting words. At this stage, don't worry about memorizing 10,000 words or becoming a walking dictionary. Your focus should be on the most common and most useful vocab, the building blocks of the language. There are many pre-made flashcard decks and apps that can help with this. A good one is the Core 2K deck, which covers around 2000 of the most frequent words in Japanese. Another popular option is the JP1K deck from Refold, or just the classic Tango N5 deck which I used. Whichever you pick, the idea is the same. Start exposing yourself to the words you'll actually see and hear in real Japanese. And don't just blindly memorize. Connect the word to what you see in immersion. If you learned the word neko, which means cat, then the next time you hear it in a show or see it in subtitles, your brain lights up, oh, I know that one. That moment of recognition is where the magic happens. Here's another trick. If your native language shares cognates with Japanese, loan words that are basically the same, you can hack your way to a quick win. Words like
コンピューター、インターネット、ホテル。
they count and they'll boost your confidence early. So, in phase 1, the goal is not to learn every word. It's to start building a foundation of useful vocab and to start noticing those words in the wild. Here in this phase, through the Anki Decks, we also see and learn the magic of frequency lists, which will be a huge part of your future study. And next, grammar. And before you panic, no, you don't need to memorize hundreds of rules or conjugation charts. At this point, grammar is just about patterns. You're not trying to speak yet, you're trying to understand. So I recommend Q Dolly on YouTube. Yes, the voice and avatar might take time to get used to, but trust me, her explanations are gold. She explains grammar from a Japanese perspective, which is way more intuitive than English-style textbooks. And later, immersion will do the heavy lifting. You'll see and hear the same patterns again and again until they become natural, but a primer now helps you recognize what you're looking at. So don't get stuck here. A few days with a beginner-friendly grammar guide is enough to set you up for success. And now step 4, the fun and main part, immersion. From phase 1 onward, you want Japanese to start seeping into your daily life. But here's the catch. Don't dive straight into the deep end with complex novels or shows where characters mumble through archaic vocab. Start with comprehensible input. That means content where you understand something. Sure, at the beginning there is nothing where you'd be able to understand 50% or even 30%, but there are differences between understanding 1% or maybe 5%. Aim for easy content, with both audio and subtitles. Things like beginner-friendly YouTube channels or kids shows with clear speech. This philosophy of comprehensible input is nothing new in the immersion space. But the only thing what I really want to stress here is the following. There is no use of consuming comprehensible input if you're not interested in it. When I started out with Japanese, and every guide and YouTuber preached comprehensible input, I struggled a lot. To be blunt, I dislike most of Japanese YouTube, to this day, and I could care less about children books, children anime, or general things that are not in the genre what I like to consume. Hours of children books would just lead me to quitting Japanese instead of making progress. I'd feel miserable. So what did I do? I searched for a mixture of both. One of the first animes that I watched was Karakai Jouzu no Takagi-san. It's a children anime with some comedy. Even without understanding what they were talking about, what I saw was funny enough to engage me for an hour or two per day. If I then still wanted to consume more Japanese, I watched some more adult anime like JoJo. Still immersion, still here and there some words that I can maybe catch, but fun because what I was so engaging. It reminded me of why I wanted to learn Japanese, because of things that I want to consume in Japanese, not because of children books. So when you found something that you're interested in, and it also has as much comprehensible input as you can find for the balance of fun and comprehensible input, then when you watch, you don't just sit back passively, you play the noticing game. This game is simple. You've studied some words with your flashcards. Now when you watch something, you're hunting for those words in the subtitles and the audio. Each time you spot one, it's like a little dopamine hit. There it is, another one. At this stage, the wins are small. Maybe you recognize a single word in a sentence. Maybe you catch a simple phrase without subtitles. Celebrate that. Those small victories stack up faster than you think. So let's recap phase 1. First, learn hiragana and katakana. This maybe takes a week or two, but don't stress perfection, just get comfortable. Then start building vocab. Use a pre-made deck like Cork 2K or another beginner deck. Learn the words that will actually show up. Read a basic grammar primer, not for production, just to get familiar with how Japanese sentences work. And then already begin immersion. Remember, it is not about mastery, it's about getting momentum. It's about building the daily habit of showing up, learning something new, and connecting what you study to what you see in the real language. If you can get through phase 1, you've already beaten the hardest part of learning Japanese. The part where most people quit, because now you're not just learning Japanese, you're living with Japanese. Once you've completed phase 1, welcome to phase 2, the real journey. In a gist, it's what I mentioned just a few moments ago. Your goal here is to find something with at least audio and subtitles. If it also has video like an anime or show, it's even better. Here, you're going to read the subtitles of the media content. Read every subtitle line along with the audio, then try to understand the sentence. If there are unknown words in the sentence, look them up. Then try to understand the sentence again. Go with your feeling. If you feel like you'd be able to understand the sentence, then take your time. If the sentence is way too long, has 99% unknown words, then still look them up. Try to get a feeling for it. If you're stuck, then you can copy-paste the sentence with some sentences before the sentence into ChatGPT or DeepL for a translation. After reading the translation and keeping in mind that it's nothing more than a translation and not to be taken by face value, then read the Japanese sentence again. In my experience, sometimes it's suddenly very obvious what word and grammar point means what in the sentence. Over time, this process trains your intuition. You'll start feeling what sounds right, even without grammar rules. And after all this, we finally reached a very crucial point: sentence mining. Sentence mining is something we can do with any medium we choose to immerse ourselves in. Whether it's video content, books, manga, games, or whatever it is. We're gonna start with video content and books. But before we go through the setup process, let me show you what everything looks like on my end. Now that you saw how the process looks in action, let's go through the things you need to install. Anki, Anki Addons, an Anki node type, Yomitan Dictionaries, frequency lists, and some browser extensions. Anki and Yomitan are essential, so let's start with this. You can download Anki for Windows, macOS and Linux, as well as for Android and iOS. But one quick note, the iOS version is the only one that isn't completely free. Once you downloaded and installed Anki, go ahead and open it. At the top, click on Tools, and then select Add-ons. This will open a new window. In that window, click on Get Add-ons. Your browser will open and we're going to download a few add-ons now. One of them is absolutely necessary for what we're going to do next, while the others are optional but still very useful. In the search bar, type Anki Connect. Click on the result, scroll down to the section that says Download, and you'll see a code there. Copy that code, go back to Anki and paste it into the Get Add-ons window. That's it, Anki will now install the add-on. You can repeat the same process for any other add-ons you'd like to use. Personally, I recommend Heatmap, which shows your study streak, and Pass-Fail 2, which gives you more control over how your reviews are handled. After you installed your add-ons, close Anki and reopen it. Now we're ready to move on to the next step. Next, we'll install Yomitan, which is a browser extension that lets you look up Japanese words instantly just by hovering your mouse over them. First, open your browser, then go to the Yomitan GitHub page or find it in the Chrome Web Store and click Add to Chrome to install. After it's installed, you should see a small Y icon appear in the toolbar in the upper right corner. Click that icon and go to Settings, then click on Dictionaries. When you first install Yomitan, you need to load dictionaries into it in order to use it. These files use the zip extension and are not to be extracted by the user. You can find a huge collection of Yomitan dictionaries on this website. This website will have everything you need and probably don't need. Dictionaries can be found in their respective folders, but before downloading just random dictionaries, I recommend to check the second text file with the recommended dictionaries for beginners or intermediate learners. On top of the dictionaries, I also heavily recommend downloading some frequency lists, like the JPDB or the CC100. Here you can just add frequency lists for the fitting topics you're interested in. Once you've downloaded the dictionaries and frequency lists you want, go back to the Yomitan settings and click Import Dictionary. Select the folder containing your downloaded dictionary files and repeat this process for each and every one. After this, you can test it out by hovering over some Japanese text online. Now you should see the readings, meanings and even pitch accent information pop up right away. Now that Yomitan and Anki are both installed, it's time to connect them using Anki Connect. This add-on, which we previously installed, allows Yomitan to automatically send new words and example sentences straight into your Anki deck. No copy and paste needed. Here's how to set it up. Make sure Anki is running. Then, in Anki, go to Tools, Add-ons, select Anki Connect and click Config. You normally don't have to change anything here. The default settings already allow Yomitan to talk to Anki using port 8765, but maybe it's good to check it again. Next, go back to your browser, find the section called Anki Integration in the Yomitan settings. Enable the integration. Then, choose the deck and node type you want to use and match up the fields. For example, one field for the word, one for the reading, one for the sentence. Once that's done, test it out. Find a Japanese word online, hover over it, and add it to Anki. If everything's set up correctly, Yomitan will now send that word, its meaning, and everything else, including some example sentences or the sentence you've mined it from, straight into your Anki deck automatically. And that's it. You've successfully connected Yomitan and Anki. Now you can instantly create high-quality flashcards from whatever you're reading, making your Japanese immersion much more efficient and fun. With Yomitan installed, we are nearly finished. The only things that are missing for mining with video content are the browser extensions. For this, we are going to install ASB Player as well as Language Reactor. This is as simply as it gets. You just Google the name, open the Chrome Web Store page and add it to your browser. ASB Player, as you saw earlier, lets you add subtitles directly to the video you're watching. It also allows you to hover over those added subtitles and instantly look them up using Yomitan. The reason we're also installing Language Reactor is that it enables you to look up words in automatically generated YouTube subtitles, something ASB Player alone can't do. This way you can understand and learn from any video which has subtitles. Congratulations, you've now finished setting up your system for watching shows, looking up unknown words and sending them directly to Anki. Reading books with the current setup is even easier. The only thing you need to do is to obtain the EPUB file of the book you want to read. Then open Reader and add the book. You now have everything you need for efficient Japanese learning. However, if you want to take things a step further, there are plenty of optional improvements you can explore. For example, you could set up automatic screenshots that are added to your Anki cards, include different audio files for each card, or customize your deck layouts in countless ways. You can even install a Reader script add-on so that you can listen to audiobooks while reading, and the corresponding audiobook line will be added to the Anki card when you create it. Basically, if you can imagine a feature, there's probably a way to make it happen with Anki and its add-ons. But even without those extra tweaks, what you've built so far is already more than enough to learn Japanese efficiently. Now let's talk about games. As I said earlier, Anki and Yomitan are things that go hand in hand when it comes to sentence mining. But when it comes to reading and mining sentences from games, we'll need a few extra tools. Here's what you'll need: the Game Sentence Miner, OBS, and Agent. As you can see, there are really only 3 programs we need to install. Let me show you again what these programs actually do in action. First, I start Game Sentence Miner and select the correct game from the drop-down menu. Once I start it, OBS automatically launches as well. Because I already finished setting up everything before, I don't have to touch OBS at all anymore. It just works in the background. Starting Game Sentence Miner also automatically opens the text hooker UI in your primary browser. Then comes the last step. I start Agent, which is the actual text hooker program I use for the corresponding game. In Agent, I connect it to the running game, select the correct script, press Attach, and that's it. Setup complete. Now, when I start playing the game and a dialogue appears, something really cool happens. The text is automatically extracted from the game and sent straight to my clipboard, as well as the text hooker UI that's open in the browser. And from here I can do what I always do, use Yomitan to look up unknown words, check readings or quick definitions. That alone is already pretty awesome, but it actually gets even better. If I now create a new Anki card, Game Sentence Miner detects that new card and updates it for me. It adds a screenshot from the game at the exact moment when the sentence appeared, and it also adds the audio from that moment. So, if that line of dialogue in the game had voice acting, the full spoken sentence will be added to your Anki card, automatically. No work, no clipping, no recording. You get the full context, text, image and audio, all synced perfectly. And that's honestly what makes this setup so powerful. You're not just memorizing random isolated sentences. You're collecting real, emotional, context-rich moments from the games you love. You remember how the character said it, what the scene looked like, and what was happening in the story. That makes every card memorable, because it's tied to something you actually experienced. It's one thing to read a flashcard that says "Iko," but it's completely different when you hear your favorite character shouting it right before a boss fight. That's how you make Anki feel alive. Once you've got all that running, sentence mining from games becomes effortless. It turns your gaming time into actual high-quality language input. You're literally playing your way to fluency.